Hello and welcome back to this edition of Party Animals. Well, Trump got what he wanted, a working mic. In this episode of Party Animals, we will be discussing the latest Trump tapes that are being released and also talk about the presidential debate. So before we begin talking about the election, I want to introduce the whole panel. So I'll start off first. My name is Jose Ortega and I am a political science and communication major, and I am from East Chicago, Indiana.
I'm Nathaniel Wade. I'm a political science major from Indianapolis, Indiana.
My name is Peter Monroe. I'm from Liverpool, England, and I'm a political science major.
I'm Justin Hayes. I'm from Brownsburg, Indiana, and I'm a psychology major.
I'm Brad Parsons. I'm a political science major. I'm from Grafton, Wisconsin.
I'm Stephen Nickel. I'm a political science and business double major, and I'm from Benton Harbor, Michigan.
Well, thank you for the introductions, and thanks for agreeing to be on this episode's show. It should be a good one, to say the least.
You're welcome.
So before we start talking about these issues, let's first take a look at the first Trump tape from Inside Edition.
Donald Trump was caught on a hot mic in 2005, bragging in vulgar language about kissing, groping, and trying to have sex with a married woman.
I did try. I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture.
It happened on board a bus in a conversation with Today Show co-host Billy Bush, who was then co-host of the TV show Access Hollywood. The Washington Post uncovered audio and video, which is now threatening to throw a major curveball into the Trump campaign.
It's kind of stunning to hear the Republican nominee, father of five, married to Melania Trump, a person who won handily the evangelical vote, talk this crudely about women.
As the bus pulls into a TV studio to film a guest appearance on Days of Our Lives, Trump and Bush notice soap actress Ariana Zucker.
I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the can do anything.
Trump is now issuing a rare apology, saying this was locker room banter, a private conversation that took place many years ago. Bill Clinton has said far worse to me on the golf course, not even close. I apologize if anyone was offended.
So that was one of the first Trump tapes that came out over this weekend, and we also have a second one to show right before we start talking about it.
Oh, well, Major, I want to start with a short video clip from 1992 from Entertainment Tonight, which is owned by CBS Television. In it, Donald Trump is heard making questionable comments about a young girl. Let's listen to that.
Soon, Thursday night, you're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
You can hear him say, I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it? Major, I wonder how concerned the Trump campaign is about videos like that one continuing to surface.
So it's been a rough kind of weekend, beginning of the week for the Trump campaign. But I want to start off with just kind of sharing your first initial thoughts when you heard especially the first tape, either Friday evening or Saturday morning. So Justin, what were your first initial thoughts when you heard Donald Trump, the Republican presidential nominee, say these comments back in 2005?
You know, Jose, I was surprised, but really I wasn't that surprised that something like this would come from Donald Trump. I mean, it just fits the egotistical, narcissistic personality he's presented to the world. But what was shocking about it was the level of aggressiveness towards women. It wasn't just checking a woman out or making just a vulgar comment about her appearance. It was actually going farther and saying that he acts on it and can do whatever he wants because he's in power. And that's something that's very wrong. I mean, even him making those just a simple comment about women, you know, may be offensive and stuff, but the fact that he takes it to the point of acting on it and that he can and knows he can, I think that really crosses the line.
Brad. What are your initial thoughts on this? Do you agree with Justin?
To a point. I think my whole thing on it is those are, like, obviously what he said is bad, but I think the whole idea of judging someone off their private conversations is kind of, it's not something I do. Like, and it's not even if it's a Trump or if it was even Hillary, but I think with private conversations, like, when you're kind of in a comfortable environment, you'll sometimes say things to people that you think, like, oh, like, no one's ever going to hear it, and obviously, like, there could be a lot of tapes of Hillary saying bad things, too, so this really didn't do too much for me on the tapes. I mean, obviously for the general public, but for me, it wasn't, like, something like hit or miss.
Steven, comments, concerns?
Yes, it's terrible the things he said. However, it's not surprising given the society we live in. I've heard similar type conversations from friends. If you watch TV or movies now, that type of language really isn't unheard of. Just look at, the lyrics of a rap song. I mean, it's so prevalent in our society that it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. And I don't know, it's sad, but then at the same point, if everybody else is doing it, so it's...
Nate, I think you had some thoughts on this subject also.
Yeah. There's a difference between, kind of like what Justin brought up, there's a difference between vulgarly describing or talking about a woman or, like, rude comments about her, crude things, and describing sexual and bragging about sexual assault, whether he did it or not. That they're not the same. Rap lyrics talking about, oh, I'm gonna take this B back and F her and blah blah blah. That's one thing, but when you're saying, oh, whether they want it or not, I'm gonna grab her genitals, I'll kiss her regardless, and you know what, I can get away with it because I'm a celebrity or because I'm empowered. Those are not the same. And there was an instance a couple years ago, Rick Ross had a lyric talking about how he date raped, put something in some woman's drink, date raped her, and took her back and date raped her, had his way with her, and he was heavily reprimanded. He lost all of his sponsors, he was cut from his labels. That's not something that is every day in rap lyrics. There's the vulgar language and the vulgar talk, but they don't describe getting, like, sexual assault. It's not, you can't put those hand in hand and say they're the same thing.
Pete, do you have any thoughts on the issues or anything that anyone of the panel brought up that you'd like to explain or talk about?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty disgraceful thing to come out of the Trump campaign, but as Justin said, I wasn't very surprised. I was disappointed, but I think the Democrats have been sitting on this tape for a while, and I think they were waiting for something like this to happen. But even, it doesn't really matter. It's still a disgraceful thing, and I think private conversations actually demonstrate who we really are, like, rather than the things we outwardly say. I think like people on TV, TV show hosts, I think they put on an act, they put on a persona, and it's, if you can listen to their private conversations, that's like what they really believe. That's who we should judge them off. And I think that with Donald Trump, he's shown who he really is.
You said something interesting there, Pete, that you think that the Democrats have been sitting in on this, or you think
I think
people were sitting on the video. I think it was, I believe, Saturday, Ted Cruz tweeted, why couldn't this video come back out in March of 2015 or March of 2016? So just kind of thoughts on that. Do you think if they actually had the video, do you think they should have released it? Or do you even think that they should have released it? Kind of like, this is to anyone. What do you think about that game of politics?
I think that is the Democrats playing politics, and I think it's interesting to think about, because I think if they did bring it out in maybe towards the end of last year, I still think it wouldn't have made a difference, because Trump is where he is today because of his base, and I don't think his base would have given up on that. I think his base possibly could be people who do talk about this in their private conversations. So I don't think that would have lowered his specific base support.
Brad, do you have some thoughts on what Pete said, or?
Just kind of, I think the difference with this one is that there's video and you can hear it. Like, I think if there's been other things that have come out with Trump that you like, it's just like a report and that like doesn't do much for you. It's kind of like the whole Ray Rice thing in the NFL. Like, they like suspended Ray Rice in the NFL for like beating a woman, but there was like nothing you could see, and they suspended him like 3 games. But then once video came out, people were like, oh my gosh. So I think the one thing that really hits home with people on this is like that you can actually like go on YouTube like we just did and hit it. And obviously that doesn't mean it makes it any better, because obviously what he says is not good, but I think that's why this is kind of hitting more than all of the other Trump drama that we've seen, because it's more like you can go literally on the internet and it's probably the first trending thing.
Steven.
I mean, in the same regard, though, yes, this video is bad, but if you look at on the other side of the ticket, you know, the popular thing to say, and you have Bill Clinton, who was notorious for all of his sexual indiscretions, whether they were provoked or not, and then you had Hillary Clinton that was backing him up. So, in essence, what's really the difference between the two candidates?
Does anyone want to respond to that?
Well, I think Bill Clinton, I think he was wrong too. And I think you can even go back to President Kennedy all the way back in the 60s. Like, he had major discretions and major issues. But I wouldn't judge Hillary Clinton on what... Say if Melania Trump did something, I wouldn't judge Donald Trump on what she did. I don't know, that's just what I think, so...
Stephen, it seems like you have a little rebuttal.
I think, though, with Hillary Clinton, though, is her big claim to fame, and she kind of rode Bill's coattails almost. I mean, granted, yes, she did her own things too, but I don't think she gets that name recognition without Bill Clinton. And she wants to run on his record. Even several times she said, you know, when Bill was president, you know, look how great the economy was. So I think if you're going to use another person and run on their record, then you have to run on everything.
Pete. I think she kind of has her own resume. I mean, she was the First Lady in the 90s. She was a U.S. Senator for nearly 8 years, I think. And she was a Secretary of State for a number of years. I think if anyone else, if anyone was just a senator for 8 years and then Secretary of State for a few years, I think they themselves would have a pretty impressive resume, whether she's a Clinton or not. So I think even if Bill wasn't around, I still think she would have the resume that she has today. I don't see any issue there.
Justin, thoughts on the discussion we're having right here?
You know, the thing with Bill Clinton is he does have a lot of dirt that seems to revolve around him, and you know, most of it is just to the level of allegation. But if someone has a lot of allegations against them, something is going on there that is causing them to have all those allegations. But I am not to the point where I can hold it against Hillary herself for what her husband did. And if she would have just totally disowned or like totally separated herself from Bill Clinton back when all of his turmoil was going on, who knows how events would have played out till today. So I'm not ready to hold his actions against her.
Brad.
I think it's interesting how, I don't know where I saw it, but like it was like some article saying like, when is the name Monica Lewinsky going to be brought up? And that kind of goes in there is like, I think the one thing with Bill Clinton that like I get what people say. Like, I don't like say like, oh my gosh, Bill did this. Like, obviously like, Hillary's her own candidate, but I think like it goes back to kind of like the whole idea of like, we already like, I think America's kind of gotten over what Bill Clinton did. Like, I think it happened and we like obviously assessed it in a way. Like, we were kind of okay with it, I feel like. Like, am I stupid when I say that? Like, no one like ever like really freaked out at Bill Clinton. But I think the video is like what gets people. It's like you look at the video and you can just see it.
I think it's hard for us to kind of base it on Clinton because, I mean, let's face it, we were all 4 or 5 years old when Bill Clinton was president. And even, I think, let me see, I was born in 94, so it happened, I'm thinking 98, 99, around there.
Someone fact check.
It was 90. It was about 98, so we were all, at least I was 6 years old.
I was 1 year
I was
old.
4 years old.
I was 1 year old.
I was one.
I love politics back then.
Well, you were, wow.
I was one, yeah.
Baby Pete.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard for us to kind of try to, I guess, try to compare the both of them.
Yeah.
Justin, do you have something you would
I
like
have
to
an
add?
interesting point that we were discussing this with Professor Capuch the other day, and we brought up Bill Clinton and how he has all this dirt against him. And Professor Capuch brought up how usually the people who seek out this kind of power seek it out in other ways too, like the lust for power expresses itself in other ways. So, I mean, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump aren't the only two politicians who have had dirty records of sexual misconduct thrown against them. Like, how many, adulterous relationships have been exposed, like Anthony Weiner, for example. Yeah, so I don't think it excuses either one of them, but it's something to be said about how your lust for power manifests itself in other ways, whereas even taking advantage of women who work for you.
So Nate, Justin was talking about the lust for power. Do you often think about? Let me rephrase my question. Let me rephrase my question.
Where is this going?
Do you agree with what Justin just said? Let me rephrase it that way.
I can see that. I can kind of go along with that. And kind of going back to what kind of I think has been unanimous between especially Justin and Pete. I don't necessarily, with the Hillary thing, I don't think we can necessarily judge her based on Bill. I mean, this and kind of like what Pete said, we're not going to judge Donald Trump necessarily on what his family says. It's what he says. Hillary didn't go out and have all these sexual misconduct instances with the people while Bill was in the office, or that we know of. I'm not gonna say for sure, but we don't I don't think that you can. I mean, yes, Bill was bad, but I don't think it's something you can compare as well, especially since we were all so young and it was so far ago. Bill faced his punishments, and
Justin.
I know Donald Trump says a lot of contradictory things and then goes against what he said, but one of the Bill Clinton accusers, he's on tape, on interview, calling her a loser. And I could find it somewhere, but I remember seeing tape of him calling one of the accusers that he then brought on to his panel for the press conference. He had called her a loser back when he was friends with the Clintons, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think you are right. I think I have seen that video too. Bill Clinton, I think Donald Trump was asked a question about Bill Clinton's accusations, and I believe he went on record and said what you just said, that there's no evidence on this individual and that this individual is indeed a loser, I think is what he said. So I kind of want to talk more about this locker room banter piece. All right. I think all of us were athletes in high school. Some of us continued. Myself, I did football, wrestling, golf, and bowling was considered a sport by the Indiana High School Athletic Association. I'm not sure why bowling was considered a sport. I'm on my soapbox right now, but I don't think bowling is considered a sport if you can eat nachos during the sport.
You missed some of my baseball games.
Let's go back to this locker room banter. During my years of being in the locker room, I have never heard anyone say any of the things that Trump supposedly says in the locker room. What we talked about in the locker room was, how our practice went, how our day is going, how our families are, how our families are going, how was school that day. We would even find ourselves, singing just, music, singing, like, what was one of this, Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the things that we did in our locker room. We had a very talented group of singers on the football team.
How long were you in the locker room for? Is this a sports team or what are you doing?
They get out to the field by halftime.
Glee club and
Professional choir.
Jose was in High School Musical.
So, I kind of want to open up to the panel. Is this truly locker room banter?
I don't like the word locker room because I've been in some bad locker rooms, and honestly, I have heard a lot of this talk, and I think it shouldn't. I know it's Trump's kind of coined it as a locker room term, but I think it goes beyond that. Like, I think we hear it in a lot of different scenarios that include like where men kind of congregate and discuss things, but so I'm not unaccustomed to this kind of talk, and I hear it quite a lot. But it's not presidential candidates that should be talking in this way. No one should be talking in this way. But when we hear it, it's from lowlives, it's from uneducated people, it's from just completely horrible people that we try not to associate ourselves with. Like, if I hear this talk, I always just distance myself. I just walk away, don't listen. When it's a presidential candidate, you can't do that, and it's in the spotlight, and I'm just not a big fan of that.
Brad, would you like to add to this conversation?
I think it's hard to compare like the type of environment that like I've been in like locker rooms than like what this is, because I think it's different. Obviously, I don't support like what he said, but I think it's different if and I'm not saying I do say stuff to the extent like a 19-year-old college kid is saying something in a locker room than him. Like, I think it's so like such a different atmosphere. Like, college kids, like as we all know, can say some of the dumbest stuff of all time, even if they're like as well educated as us. Like at some point, so I think it's like really hard to say like, oh well, I heard that in the locker room, but it's like a way different environment than being wherein Trump was, where it's like he kind of has to like know like as at his like stage like that there's like consequences. Like if I said that in a locker room, I don't think I would have many consequences because the reality is no one really cares what I say.
Was he in a locker room? Like, was that bus a locker room, or was that like just going to a set?
I think it was going to a set.
I think it was going to a set, so it wasn't a locker room, but he described it as locker room banter. Stephen, thoughts on the locker room?
Well, I have heard somewhat similar conversations in locker rooms, and even outside of locker rooms, and I think what it is it's we as a society have this idea that men have to prove themselves to be more manly than every other man out there, and we've equated sexual conquest with manliness, which makes no sense. But because we do that, and I think that's the reason you see it in locker rooms and stuff, is because they're trying to prove that there's so much more a man than everybody else. And I think that's essentially what he was trying to do in that video, is he was trying to prove to Billy Bush that he was a bigger man than he was. And so I think it goes back to societal issue that, we've made, sex and particularly women just objects.
Nate, I see that you wanted to say something on this issue.
I mean, kind of piggybacking on Steven, it's that whole machismo. I don't think it helped at all. That Billy Bush did seem to be kind of egging him on. Oh yeah, you see her, yeah, and Trump starts talking about the actress that came out to meet them at the bus, and it is kind of like Steven said, it is a societal issue. Women are put on the stage and turned into sex objects, and women are not in many playing fields are not treated like humans. They're just a piece of meat.
Justin, I saw you nodding your head while Stephen was talking.
Yeah, I think Brad and Stephen made very good points, and I really wanted to talk about Stephen's point about overcompensation. And I just read a New York Times article today about, they use the term toxic masculinity. That's like the 2016 kind of political correct term for it, but Trump is always trying to prove himself and prove that he's better than everyone, and that stems from an inner insecurity. And I think in locker rooms, the guys that are saying that are the ones who are trying to prove to everyone that they are more of a man and that they can get any girl they want, when really they're pretty insecure about themselves, and they need everyone else to try to think that they're a bigger man than they are. And the guys who don't say that stuff, usually they're the ones who are a little more secure and actually respect women and get the respect from women that the guys who say that stuff don't really get.
Peter.
I think it's quite upsetting that we don't really have a woman on the table to talk about this with, because we say it's like a big societal issue, but this affects no one more than women. And I think, I think this is Nate said, it's a big societal issue, and it's got deeper meaning beyond the locker room, and it's pretty upsetting that we don't have a woman here to talk about it, because this is who it affects.
All right, Pete, you can get up, and we're going to switch seats for a little bit. We're going to ask Lindsay Working to come on the podcast. You'll be back.
I didn't know this was going to
Wait,
happen.
do you want me to leave? So like, Pete, I mean, he obviously asked the question.
True, maybe, Pete. You stay in.
can-
Oh, wait, we have
You
chairs.
can fit.
We have chairs.
We'll just slide
We have
around.
chairs. Here, take this chair.
Am I the new host?
We're getting
No.
cozy.
Welcome to Party Animals with Peter Monroe.
Didn't know this was going to happen.
No. I came to do audio.
Give this to Lindsay, or give this to you.
You use that one.
All right.
And just hold it, because you're going to be farther away. Maybe.
So, Pete, you have brought a very good point, and I think that it would be important to get kind of, just an kind of a woman's opinion on all of this. So, Lindsay, I know we're kind of throwing you in the spot,
All right.
but what were your thoughts when you heard these revelations coming against Trump Friday evening or Saturday morning, whenever you heard them?
Honestly, I wasn't surprised at all that a tape like this existed of Trump saying these things. And just from a woman's perspective, it is awful. Like, I personally don't ever appreciate when I hear anyone, man, woman, whatever, saying comments like this. But Steven said earlier, like, things like this have just become like a part of society. Like, you see it on TV, you hear it in conversation, and I think to a certain degree, some women have even become very just almost numb to that kind of conversation. And then to hear somebody who is running for president say that is extremely disappointing, because we are at a point where, just like the fight for equality across the board is so big, and then to hear somebody kind of be demeaning to a certain group of individuals, whether it be women or anyone, is just very disappointing to hear from a presidential candidate.
Brad, I saw you had your hand up. Do you want to?
Well, I have two things.
All right,
Like,
let's
this
hear
whole
them.
like idea is so weird to me, because like in high school I never thought of it. Like, I have two sisters that both can like kick my ass. Like, my mom too. Like, my house is like woman run. Like, so like I never like really thought of it, and like the whole like idea of like, oh, like I've never like, it never hit me until I got to college, until things got real. And like, it's like so true though. It's like so true how like this is like if, let's say, Hillary Clinton said stuff like this like about men, it'd be so different, right? Like, people would be like, oh, well, a man can take it. And it's not even like that. It's more the idea of like how wrong it's gotten, how like we like, not that like what Trump said is normal, but we're kind of like, I get it. Like, and that's just so weird to me.
Steven,
I think
thoughts?
kind of to piggyback off of that, you look at particularly where teachers have sex with students. When it's a female teacher and a male student, nobody really says anything. They're like, in fact, they almost, are proud of the kid, and they're like, oh, wow, lucky you. But now if it's a male teacher and a female student, the situation's entirely different.
Yeah, so we're talking about double standards here.
Yeah.
So my favorite, it's not my favorite, but one of the double standards that I really don't understand is the walk of shame versus the walk of fame. If a woman, and even, in fact, if a woman sleeps around with a couple guys, she's seen as a, well, I guess I could say she's seen as a whore. But when a man does it, high fives going around, drinks going around for the man because he's able to insert his dominance, I guess. Well, that's a weird way to say it, but almost like that. So, I guess changing the subject, but not really. I know we've heard from the men's side about locker room banter. What about a female side for locker room banter?
Interesting.
Have you heard this in the locker room?
Not particularly. No. But I do think to a certain degree, and I don't know if this really answers your question, but I do think to a certain degree, I don't know. I mean, I've not been in a men's locker room. I've been in a women's soccer locker room, and we don't really talk about that. We talk about the game, or like you said earlier, we're listening to music, getting pumped, getting ready, but, phrases like that you do hear around in general, so.
Are you guys singing Bohemian Rhapsody in your locker room? Or
We're singing like Beyonce, Rihanna, Girl Power,
I mean, we also sang Beyonce in our locker room because it was in my heyday in high school where Single Ladies came out. So you best believe I was doing the dance and singing in the football locker room. That being said, Justin, I think I saw your hand up. If not, do you just have any thoughts on what Lindsay said?
Yeah, I think it's very important very disappointing that a presidential candidate is stooping to that low of a level, especially hearing, how does he expect to get the vote for women, the support from women, if he's describing them like that? And the way he came back with that is, I treat women better than anyone. He didn't say, I'm a loving husband, I treat my daughters like I would want any woman to be treated. He said, I treat women better than anyone. Basically, point blank, that's it. And I think, how is he supposed to show women that he supports them, he's going to fight for them as a president, when he's speaking about them like that at 59 years old? I mean, well, yeah, back at the time when he was 59. And now when he's 70, who knows what he says. If he said it back then, I don't know how much he's really changed over the years. And I think, while I'm on my rant, he said, I'm sorry if anyone is offended. So basically, he's sorry that women, when they are offended by it, he's sorry that they had the audacity to be offended. Not he's sorry that he was in the state to say those words. If they weren't offended by it, then he's not sorry. But since they're offended, he's like, I'm sorry that you had the audacity to be offended.
I was following this story very closely on Friday evening, and I was up and I saw that he released a video on Facebook. And in the Facebook video, it lasted about maybe a minute and a half, close to 2 minutes. But while he was explaining and apologizing for what he did, it almost felt that he was apologizing for the video coming out. I don't think he really apologized for the words he said.
It's like he didn't really know why he was apologizing. He was like, why are people so upset about this? This happens all the time. I think I watched the video as well, but it was a long time ago. Well, not a long time, a week ago, and I can't really remember how it went. But he was quite robotic, and he was just kind of yeah, I'm really sorry, reading off a prompter. And it's like he didn't understand why he was apologizing.
One of the things that kind of bothers me about this whole political season kind of involves Trump, how he's made claims against Hispanics, against African Americans, against POWs, against the disabled, and now more comments coming out against women. So I just have a question, for people watching, for people here in the panel that are Trump supporters. Please, let me know, without saying Hillary's name, just why you can see yourself voting for someone who brags or even casually talks about sexually assaulting women, or, what is it about this man that kind of just inspires you? What makes this man a good role model for us? And, is this the face that you want to show the world? Like I said, it's open to anyone on this panel. And then also anyone to type in the comments, but what is it about Donald Trump that makes you proud? Is there anything that makes you proud? I see a lot of head shaking. So, Steven, comments?
I would say no. I think for a lot of people, it's just because of who's on the other side. I think that you have two candidates that are so universally hated for so many reasons that people are picking based on who they think the lesser of two evils is. So for people that are Republicans, they're thinking, well, at least he's a Republican, has a Republican vice president, and would, do things according to what the RNC might tell him a little bit. Whereas with the other side, you don't have that. And I think the same goes for the other side, too, for Democrats. Because, when Ronald Reagan won, he had a lot of Democrats that voted for him. But you have those on the other side that are just picking Hillary Clinton as the lesser of two evils. So I think it's just a battle of... And I think that has to do with our primary system, but that's a discussion for another time. And I'll pass it off to someone else.
Lindsay, thoughts on the issue?
I know for me, it's been a huge, personal struggle because this is my first election that I'm able to vote in, and I've honestly hit around the idea of not voting for a presidential candidate and just focusing on the other offices that need to be filled and learning and educating myself on what those people can do and their power and what they stand for and want to happen, because a lot of those offices may even affect me, my state, my home more than the office of president. So,
Brad, I see you have some thoughts on the issue or the topic of down ballot voting.
It's so weird, looking at it maybe even 2 years ago, how I kind of looked, obviously I'm a poli-sci kid, and I'm raised a Republican, still a Republican view, but it's so weird thinking that I'm probably not excited to go and vote Republican for obviously in my state, for any Wisconsin viewers out there, Ron Johnson. But it's just so weird thinking I don't really want to vote Republican in the presidential election. I just really don't want to. And it is. I was having this conversation with one of my parents, and I was just how are we gonna do this? And my mom, who her father was one of the head Republican lawyers in the state of Wisconsin, literally said to me, she goes, I don't know. And it's just, I think that's where it's getting to, where just don't know what to do. But Ron Johnson, 2016. Can't say it anymore.
Gary Johnson, 2016?
No.
Johnson.
I heard Ron Swanson, 2016.
Ron Johnson, Wisconsin, 2016.
Steven, I see you have your hand up. Thoughts on what Brad said?
Well, I agree with him. I know a lot of people, if you just look at the Republican leadership, look at people like Speaker Paul Ryan and other senators, and they're just shaking their head. They don't know what to do with this because you've never had a point. But the problem is the Republican Party, I think both parties, as a matter of fact, have neglected the populace for so long and pretend that they were up in your ivory towers and the people couldn't do anything to them. And this is the people's way of saying fuck you. That's really their way of saying it. So
it all comes out.
And that's what it is on both sides. I think you see that. You had the Bernie Sanders movement on the left, you had the Donald Trump movement on the right, and the Bernie Sanders movement may have even gone all the way if it hadn't been for, DNC interference.
That is a conversation for another day. Nate, do you have thoughts on...
First, PG-13 for this podcast, I guess. Parental guidance.
I used up the one. I meant to censor myself, but I forgot.
Well, during the show, we are allowed one curse word, so sorry if you're watching this at home.
Have I used mine?
No, the show gets one.
Oh.
The show gets one.
I thought we had one.
No. You used one earlier.
The show gets one.
But kind of going along with what Steven said earlier, it seems like everyone's just kind of voting, oh, I'm Republican, so I'm going to vote for Trump. Oh, I'm Democrat, I'm going to vote for Clinton. And there's so many uninformed voters that don't know necessarily what what the candidate they're supporting or what the candidate they're opposing it stands for. Trump said Hillary's a crook, so I'm not going to vote for Hillary. Or Hillary says this about Trump. Oh, I'm not going to vote for Trump. It's just, my parents are Republican, I'll vote Republican. My parents are Democrats, I'll vote Democrat. My parents didn't vote, Gary Johnson.
So I want to talk about, I'm going to throw the question back to you, Nate. So I know earlier this week there has been a lot of Republicans pulling their support from Donald Trump. We have seen John McCain pull his support. We have seen kind of other Republicans. I'm trying to think of some names. The Bush, Lindsey Graham, of course Mitt Romney never really supported him.
Two Alaskan senators, I think, pulled their support and then stepped down from their positions.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Sarah Palin.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, did pull his support. The governor pulled his support. And there's been a bunch of other congressmen and senators that have been pulling their support from Donald Trump. We see the Republican Party kind of falling apart right now.
Yeah.
And they need to be saved. Do you think the focus should be right now? Or do you think the focus should be after the election? So, like Nate, I said, thoughts and reactions.
Honestly, I think it's a little late to try and save the Republican Party for this election. It's falling into shambles. It's kind of broken beyond repair. I feel like it's something that once the election is over, regardless of who wins, there has to be, especially if Trump loses, there just has to be a major rebuild of the party, because honestly, if the Republican Party continues to fall like it is, it's just going to seem like a one-party system that we have.
Brad, thoughts on the GOP?
I think the Trump thing hurts it, but I don't think this changes much for, let's say, 2020. I mean, I think the party itself is fine. I think the Trump thing is, hurt. I think if you look at it, let's say one of the other Republican candidates gets in, I think it beats Clinton. Maybe not Ted Cruz, but I think this whole Trump thing is obviously kind of separated. And I kind of agree. I think this is, beyond repair for 2016. But I think once Trump kind of, falls away, hopefully he does, and, it kind of gets back to it, come, 2018 for, what do they call those, mid-elections? Midterm elections, just like we had here at St. Joe. I think they can still do well like they did in 2014.
Justin, I want your thoughts. Earlier this week, there was some talks about maybe potentially Mike Pence dropping from the ticket. Now, I know Mike Pence said he never had those thoughts, and he's definitely not dropping the ticket right now, but for the sake of his own political career, do you think Mike Pence should stay on the ticket, or do you think he should have left?
See, I think once the tape came out, it just looked embarrassing for him to be associated with that. He's automatically Trump Pence. That is now associated in everyone's head. So now when they hear Pence, they're gonna think Trump Pence 2016. So in the future, when he's trying to run for office, they're gonna know he's stuck by Trump when all this came out. So when he's in the future trying to go for the support of women, they can ask, why did you stay on the ticket with Trump then after this came out?
I know if Trump loses, Pence will probably be one of the people talking around for vice presidents. It's happened kind of in our history. John Edwards in 2004 was running with John Kerry. He was one of the front runners for 2008. Let me see, Paul Ryan was also one of the front runners for 2016, but he decided not to jump into the race. So yes, I do think that Mike Pence will probably still run. I think he wanted to run 2016. I just didn't think he had the...
No one knew who he was.
Well, no one knew who he was, and then he also had a bad spring of 2014, yes. 2015. with the Religious Freedom Act. So I guess the same question to you, Brad. What do you think about this Mike Pence situation?
Well, two things. Paul Ryan runs in 2020 and wins. Bold prediction on.
You heard it here, folks.
Yep.
Party animals.
And I mean, I get it. Also, like, I think the whole thing with him being vice president, I think you have to keep going. Like, I think if even with Trump, you can't just like. I think it'd be worse if he quit. Like, I think people are gonna get over the fact that he was like picked for the VP because I think half the people know that half of it's like the RNC kind of pushing and half of it's Trump. Like, if I like off the top of your head, Steven, don't say anything. Like, who was John McCain's VP that he ran with? Oh, that's easy.
Yes. I was gonna say that's an easy one.
No, but like it's like people will forget who the VP was though. Like, I feel like that's not like a big deal with Mike Pence because like obviously it's not like he was friends with Trump in 2005. So like I don't think it was like a monstrous deal for him to leave the ticket.
Peter, thoughts on the whole Pence thing?
I think it's not Pence we should be talking about. I think it's Ted Cruz. Because I think Ted Cruz was one of the favorites to run in 2020 after he dropped out of this race. And then he committed to Trump quite recently, and I think that's going to cost him quite a lot. Because I think he was the figurehead for the Never Trump movement, especially for the Republican Party on the conservative right. And now I feel like a lot of people are going to remember that he flip-flopped like 4 times. And I think his bid to run in 2020 has been quite damaged now.
Steven, I saw you shaking your head over there. What's going on in Steven land?
Well, the Never Trump movement was actually more started by the Rubio campaign, and then the Cruz campaign somewhat adopted it as well. Because if you remember in the beginning of the primary, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump were very buddy-buddy. And that's the thing with Ted Cruz, and a lot of people don't like him because he's not a personal guy. He's just not. That's not how his mind works. He thinks very calculatingly. And so he's thinking that if, Donald Trump has all of these supporters that were supposed to be Ted Cruz's home base. Ted Cruz was supposed to clean up with evangelicals. And yet Donald Trump won the evangelical vote. So he has to come back to his base, otherwise, who is he? He has no base. So I think what he did is actually better for his political future because without evangelicals, Ted Trump is nothing. Ted Trump.
Wow. That's scary. That's scary. Just imagine them having a baby. That's scary.
Can you imagine how much personality would have been if Ted Cruz was the nominee between Ted Cruz versus Hillary?
God. The debates wouldn't have the ratings that they
No. Not nearly.
It's a very good segue there, Peter.
That's what I'm good for.
Let's talk about the second presidential debate, which was Sunday. Finally got it right. So let's take a look at one of the highlight reels from the debate. I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed the theme music for that video. Oh gosh. So I just kind of want to ask the panel, what are your thoughts about the debate? We'll go one by one. We'll start with Stephen. Okay? I just want to, what was your favorite moment, or what was like one of the things that the candidate said that just kind of made you say, wow, I can't believe that was said, or wow, I agree. Stephen.
I think for me, I found this debate to be more substantive than the previous ones because it was in a town hall format. I feel like, when a moderator asks a question, they're fine with just beating around the bush and taking it whatever way they want. But when it's an actual voter asking, that's when they actually get a little bit nervous about answering the question. And so with having people actually asking the questions, I think you got some better answers. I think an interesting point, and it was one of the high points of the night, is when Donald Trump talked about, they tried to bring up his taxes and stuff, and he says, I'm just taking advantage of the system that you've set up. You've been in politics for 30 years, and your donor friends are, he was one of our donors at one point, so he knows how the system is set up and who it's supposed to benefit. And so I think it's, it was a good point of the night when it just showed that, Donald Trump is not a great candidate. Hillary Clinton's not a real candidate either.
Brad, favorite thoughts of the night?
I watched the Packer game, so I didn't really watch the debate. But I thought the whole comment of her saying the demeanor of going to jail or whatever, and he was oh, you'd be in jail, everyone made a big deal of it. I just thought that was whatever, everyone kind of overreacted, I think, about it. And I don't know, maybe I'll say that was my moment of the debate, the overreaction to that comment.
Mr. Hayes, thoughts? Favorite part of the night?
A lot stood out, but one that vividly did was when the Muslim woman had her chance to address the candidates, and she was wondering how they would try to work with the Muslim community to help try to make them feel more included and stem violence and fears. And I think that Hillary did a much better job of trying to act like it was a symbiotic relationship, like it was a partnership between the Muslim community and the rest of America, like it was a community actually, whereas Trump, he works off of alienation and tribal fears. And I think he still stoked those fears when he said we need to make sure that Muslims are reporting when they see stuff that's happening. And he tried to make it, I think how he said it made it sound like there was a lot of underreporting that goes on. And I don't think he did enough to say we're going to try to make people who are Muslim in America feel more included. I just think he stuck to what he knew how to do.
Lindsay, your favorite part of the debate?
Well, Trump and Clinton not shaking hands at the beginning of the debate definitely set the tone for me. And then also, I don't know, it just seems like we just keep going in circles. New things come up to be disappointed in one candidate or the other about. And after a while, I watched the entire debate, but after a while I really just stopped listening because it just, I don't know, it's just disappointing to watch at this point.
Nate, I know you're thinking about this question.
The first probably half hour of it was, I'm going to use a very sophisticated technical political science term, it was a shit show.
Don't say that.
It's a technical term.
It is a technical term, so you can't say shit show.
We can say shit show.
Yeah.
What can we say? Shit show.
I think one of the things that kind of stuck out to me, I'm not shocked if either candidate ever did this, but when Carl Becker, the second MVP of the debate, asked what the candidates like about each other, and Trump said he likes how Clinton never gives up, contradicting all of his attacks, saying that she has no stamina to run for the office, she has no stamina to be in it, and that kind of stood out to me. That he kind of, I think he kind of sees, sometimes he just blows smoke to get his crowds rallied up.
Peter?
I'm just not surprised by anything anymore. I mean, I feel like the ice has now been broken with presidential debates. In nearly every presidential debate in history, it's always been so formal, and if you say one thing out of line, that's it. Like, you're basically treading on thin ice the whole time, and you have to be so careful. But now, candidates are basically saying whatever they want. The crowds are loving it or hating it. Social media is reacting, and there's no thin ice anymore. You can kind of say what you want, and it's accepted. It's not accepted as like a social thing, but it's accepted that you can kind of just talk about what you want, use any words you want. And I think people are just kind of fatigued at that now. And it's like one of the least inspiring political times, especially for people like us who are quite young. And, you know, if we're the future leaders of the world, and we see people like this talking, and it's just not an inspiring time to be around.
So Justin, in this podcast, we have been talking a lot about Donald Trump, but I want to focus on Clinton a little bit. How do you think her performance was? I know a lot of political pundits have been wondering why Clinton didn't bury Trump with the terrible week that he's had, the terrible weekend that he's had prior to the debate. Do you think Clinton underperformed in that area?
Well, you could say that she let his actions speak for themselves, and there's enough reporting in the media to really bury him, and she could have went for the jugular on live TV, but then she got the uplifting moment of when they go low, we go high. Like, she kind of got like a hurrah from the crowd about that. But I think her rhetoric, and she's curtailed this over 30 years of being a politician. It was so refreshing, her manner of speech versus Trump and his elementary school vocabulary. Like, it's so bad, it's terrible. Like, he would always, like, that was my best impression, not really, but he would call everything terrible or bad. Like, he wouldn't say why, or he would stick to words that invoke fear in your mind. And I feel like just at least her way of explaining her views made her sound a lot more polished in a good way versus like a machine.
Nate, same question to you. Thoughts on Hillary Clinton's performance?
Kind of going off what Justin said, she got the whole they go low, we go high, and I feel like if she would have just tried to, oh, this happened to Trump this week, this happened to Trump this week, oh, Trump said this, Trump, if she would have tried to do that too much, she would have just been beating a dead horse. He kind of dug his grave himself. Whether he jumps all the way in or not is on him. I don't think there was a lot that she really needed to do in kind of hitting him in the jugular. I think she kind of stayed a little more calm, which I liked. She didn't try and it didn't seem to me like she tried to go like a schoolyard like fight as much as he kind of led to, as much, even in the times that it did get heated, but I don't think it was nearly as kind of childish like Justin said.
Now, we've been talking a lot about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton won this debate, is what people are saying, by a pretty good margin. Not as good as margin as the first debate, but still a pretty good margin. But I think we all realize who the real winner of Sunday night's second presidential debate was.
Bowen Becker, 2016.
Bowen Becker.
More particularly, Ken Bone. And we have a clip here of Ken Bone kind of explaining himself after the second presidential debate. So let's take a listen at that.
All day long, my staff and I, we've been pondering this important question. What makes Ken Bone so awesome? Ken Bone, as you may recall, was the undecided voter in the red sweater who asked the energy question at last night's debate. Why do we all find him so charming? Is it the red sweater? That was actually his backup outfit after he says he split his pants to his olive-colored suit. Maybe it's the mustache? Perhaps it's the disposable camera he used to snap pics after the debate? Ken Bone's name started trending online during the debate. Now, Mr. Bone's making the TV interview rounds. He told CNN earlier today about his new following on Twitter.
I went from last night having 7 Twitter followers, 2 of which were my grandmother because she had to remake her account when she forgot her password, to now I have several hundred. I don't know why they care what I have to say, but I'm glad they're engaged in the political process.
He's even more awesome than ever just watching that clip. That number is more than 30,000 now, and the Ken Bone memes are everywhere. There's Ken Bone with the 90s rap group Bone Thugs and Harmony. How about the Ken Bone Halloween costume?
I think Ken Bone has been probably my favorite highlight, the favorite thing that has ever happened in this election. Ken Bone is a relief to me. I plan on dressing for him for Halloween.
Sexy Ken Bone.
Sexy Ken Bone. I am actually one of his 3,000 or 30,000 Twitter followers, and he has been busy on and off the shows. And Ken Bone, if you're watching this, please come up to Indiana and be on the show. We will buy you pizza. That's all I can promise.
We'll get you a new pantsuit. New olive-colored suit.
We will get you a new olive-colored suit if you come on the show. So please, no, seriously, come on the show. We would love to have you. Just thoughts on Ken Bone. Lindsay.
I think one of the reasons why he's kind of been labeled as the winner of the presidential debate is because he is your typical American. He's just a guy who went to the debate in a red sweater with his concerns. He just asked his question that maybe, a lot of other Americans are concerned about as well. He is your typical average Joe who just has concerns and wants the presidential candidates to answer his questions.
Pete, I hear you chuckling next to me. What are you doing over there?
I'm just looking at Ken Bone memes. There's some good ones. But I think he's a good escape for Americans. Everyone's watching this debate and absolutely sick of it, and then it's just what can we get out of this debate? Oh, Ken Bone. He's the only good thing that we can get from politics at the moment. And why not? I would go for that.
Justin, thoughts on our friend Ken?
Well, the whole thing I think is just dripping with irony. That's what is making him so famous, at least on social media, is this hero worship of Ken Bone, the guy who's so not a hero. He's not what you would think as a hero. And everything is a meme nowadays, and he has become a meme himself. So I think his fame is going to last about another week until it's so not ironic or unironic, I guess, to like Ken Bone because everyone does. Then he's going to just disappear.
So you think he's going to be the Joe the Plumber of 2008?
I hope he runs 2020.
It could be.
Ken Bone 2020.
Irony. There we go. That's what keeps him going.
Kanye Bone 2020.
Irony.
I already know his slogan.
What's going to be his slogan?
No, it's okay. Plead the fifth.
Anyone else have any thoughts on anything that we discussed tonight? All right, Steven.
Well, I mean, on the Ken Bone issue, I didn't even realize that it was a big thing until like days later. So I don't know if I'm just completely aloof to anything that becomes popular, which is highly likely.
I think it is aloof.
But I don't know. I've never understood our society's obsession with these, heroes. These 15-minute
they're
heroes.
They are heroes.
But no, I agree. He's a genuine guy and I think that's why people connected with him is just because he was real. And in an election where we have two people who are so fake, to have a real person was refreshing.
I think he should moderate the next debate. I think I think it's a Fox News anchor. We can get rid of that. We can have Ken Bone instead.
I don't like Ken Bone. I don't like how he's sold out. Like he has like 3 deals now. Like when you're like one of these guys, like a meme, like you can't like make money off yourself. That's like other people's job.
He's sold out to the man.
And like he's a
Sold out
sellout
to-
now.
to
Like Ken
Twitter.
Bone was cool when like it was like his first tweet was like Ariana Grande, don't stop. You're a great like that's like the Ken Bone I want, not the drive Uber and you can get the Ken Bone 10% special.
He's been famous for 2 days, and you're already saying that
He's a sellout,
He's
Pete.
gone to his head.
Pete, I know you've been in America for about 2 days, but he's a sellout.
All right, Kembo, if you're watching and if you want to become on the show, I will make sure Brad will not be on the show.
If you come on the show, can you sign
Ken
my
Bone,
shirt?
if you actually
Sign
come
my
to
Ken Bone
Rensselaer,
shirt.
Indiana, you can like throw a pie in my face. So
buy your Ken Bone shirts, everybody.
Even as parody counts.
I'm on the Ken Bone memes right now.
Use my Uber promo code C4V and get a free first ride. Get that bone moving.
His
And
hashtag-
at least he's encouraging people to engage in the political process. He's
His
telling them
hashtag
not.
is Bone Zone.
Don't forget to register to vote. He said feel the bone. So that's kind of some sexual innuendo there.
It's
He's
also,
embracing.
it's also hashtag Bone Zone.
She's
That he's one of
embracing
the
his
tweets.
innuendo.
Bone down. That's what I said.
Wow. What a great discussion. What a great discussion we had this evening. Thank you again to my panel, Stephen, Nickel, Brad Parsons, Justin Hayes, Lindsay Workin, Nathaniel Wade,
Spell it with an E this time, not an A.
and Peter Monroe. Also, a special thank you to Jeff Brewster, our IT specialist / manager. So thank you again for helping out. Thank you again for watching. We'll take a week off next week, but we'll be back to discuss the last presidential debate. So for Party Animals, good night.
Bone down.